Yo, I am back once again with another movie review, man. Yes, back once again, another movie review. I don't know why I said that twice, but anyway, yes, another video. This movie review is going to be for the new Space Jam movie, A New Legacy starring LeBron James. It just dropped this weekend, so went out to go see it last night. I actually recorded a review last night, but I feel like I could do a little bit of a better job here, condense the video down, because the original review that I did last night went on for like over 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to condense it down, try to get the important pieces out, and keep it moving. So we all know that this movie was rumored for quite some time. It was actually in the talks for years and years. I remember the rumors coming out, it seems like 15 years ago, but it's probably a little bit less than that. But I remember them talking about this movie, rumors leaking out about, a new Space Jam movie starring LeBron James. And, it got everybody kind of like interested, like everybody was, pretty much interested in seeing a new Space Jam movie with LeBron James. And finally it got announced a couple years ago. I forgot when they announced it, but when they announced it, that's when we knew it was official. So fast forward to now, the movie is finally out, and yeah, I got some things to say about this one. Now, with the original movie, it is a cult classic, but I don't think it's a cult classic based on the movie of itself. I think the reason why that movie stands out to this day is because of course, Michael Jordan. You have the Looney Tunes, you have all the merchandise that came along with it, with the jerseys and the Space Jam Air Jordan 11 sneakers. And like I said, the whole marketing campaign behind that whole movie, of course, with Nike and Jordan, I think that's the reason why that movie is considered a cult classic more so than anything. The movie of itself, while though it's not a great movie, I still think it's still like an enjoyable movie. It's a very cheesy movie. It's not really a good movie at all. But, I mean, it had a lot of heart to it. It had a lot of charm. And I just felt like it was an enjoyable movie. You could still watch the movie to this day, and you could still appreciate it for what it was. It was very lighthearted. Like I said, very fun. A lot of heart, a lot of charm. The characters, I like the interaction that Michael Jordan had between the Looney Tunes characters and stuff like that. And I think watching this movie now, after watching this new Space Jam movie, I think I have much more appreciation for the original. So, with that being said, man, fast forward to this new one. Man, this new one, man, it's something, and it's something that's not in a good way. In short, I guess, to summarize my whole thoughts on this movie is cringeworthy as hell. I remember yesterday, before watching the movie, one of my friends on Facebook had saw it, and he had posted, this movie is definitely cringeworthy. And, I looked at it, I was like, okay, whatever. But after watching this movie, I'm just like, yes, this movie is cringeworthy as shit. You know what I mean? It is probably one of the most cringiest movies I've ever seen in quite some time. And that's saying a lot. This movie is not really that good. It's not good at all. This movie sucks. Just got to say that right off the bat. But I guess I could go into my good, my bad. I'm going to wrap it up from there. So I think the good parts of the movie was pretty much things that didn't really have to do with the movie at all, per se. One of the songs that I do like a lot, which is We Win. That's a song by Lil Baby and Kirk Franklin. I guess that's like the main song of the soundtrack, the Space Jam New Legacy soundtrack. And I love that song a lot, man. They played it during the movie, parts of it during the movie, but then they played it at the end credit scene. And like I said, I love that song a lot. It's a dope song. And I'm not even a Lil Baby fan at all, but I do like that song. So shout out to Lil Baby and Kirk Franklin. Y'all made a dope song. Like I said, I like that song. Another thing that I liked was the actual jerseys of itself. Like the Toon Squad jerseys is freaking dope. Like the colors, you have the orange, the orange circle on the side with like that nice, I guess you could call it turquoise color. That's like the main color of the jersey, but then you have the orange circle on the side with the Toon Squad lettering. Whoever designed the new jerseys for the Toon Squad, they did a great job, because this, if I had to compare it to the original, it's pretty close because I love the original design of the jerseys as well. But if I had to compare the two, which one I like more, I have to give the slight edge to the new one. Like, the new one, I think is a little bit more creative. I think the original is a little bit too plain, but it's still nice because the colors are simple. It's like red, white, and blue. So you can't go wrong with that. It's like a classic color combination. You know, you have the Toon Squad logo right in the middle of the jersey. It has a classic retro uniform feel that you will see in 1996 or around that era. Like, that style of jersey you will see in that era, like whether it's professional basketball, college basketball. And with this new one, I think it's a little bit more unique. It's a little bit more creative. So that's why I would say, like, I would choose this new Toon Squad look over the old Toon Squad jersey. I just think that, like I said before, the jersey is a little bit more creative. Another thing that I did like is the new LeBron shoes. Now, if you're a sneakerhead like me, of course you're going to pay attention to that stuff. I think maybe a lot of people who's going to watch this movie, they're probably not really that into sneakers at all, so they're probably just going to brush it off as like, oh, there's another Nike shoe. But for me as a sneakerhead, I'm going to notice things like that because that's one of the things that I love about the original. You know, one of the most iconic sneakers of all time, the Air Jordan 11, that's where we got to see the Space Jam Air Jordan 11 colorway. So with this one, they did the same thing. They introduced a new shoe, a new LeBron model, and then they had a new colorway for it. So I think the sneakers are pretty nice. I don't know if I'm going to get them. I guess if they're on discount, I'll probably cop them. But, you know, yeah, they're pretty sweet, man. I do like the colors. There's two colorways that's coming out, actually. It's the white and blue one that actually was in the movie, but it was like an animated version of the movie because there's a good part of this movie that takes place that's animated. So it's not in real life. You know, it's not in real live action. It's actually animated. And the shoes that LeBron was wearing while he was animated was the LeBron 19s, but it was the animated version. But those are coming out, actually. Like, the exact colorway that was in the movie while what LeBron was wearing, those were coming out. And then the other colorway that he wore in the final, the basketball game in the movie, the orange with the purples and the blues and all of that, those are coming out too. So I think those are pretty dope. Like I said before, I don't know if I'm going to cop them or not. If they're on discount or if I'm in the mood, I'll be like, yo, I got to get them. But I do think that the sneakers are pretty sweet. And I think a couple of the jokes were pretty nice. LeBron had this one joke with one of the guys from the Goon Squad that was modeled after Anthony Davis. He made fun of his unibrow. I forgot what the joke was, but basically he was like, yo, your unibrow needs to be separated, something like that. But the way how he delivered it, the way how he said it, I think the joke, it was pretty funny. And then there was this another joke. I think this was the funniest joke of the movie by far, was when they were at halftime. They was in the halftime locker room. And then Sylvester comes out. He says, oh, I found Michael Jordan. I found Michael Jordan, y'all. And everybody was like, oh, snap, Michael Jordan's here. So everybody thought that, you know, Michael Jordan was coming to help save the day. But then you see the person walking. He's walking through the tunnel, but it starts from the camera, pans down to his foot. So it starts off at the foot. And, you know, as the person's walking, you can kind of tell, yeah, this is not Michael Jordan. Even before when Sylvester first said it, I thought that it was actually going to be Michael Jordan for a split second. But I'm like, this is Looney Tunes, so that's not going to be the case. So as the person's walking through the tunnel, make a long story short, it was actually Michael B. Jordan. I thought that shit was hilarious as hell because, you know, they got the same name, but instead of Michael A. Jordan, it was Michael B. Jordan. That was like the funniest joke of the movie by far. I was laughing my ass off when I saw that, and it was a nice cameo. Like, that cameo setup was pretty nice. Also, too, I think another good thing was the character of Lola. Now, I don't think that Lola had enough lines. Lola didn't really have a lot of lines like that at all. Of course, it was played by Zendaya. I think she did an okay job. But the character of Lola, I think in this movie, had a little bit more character in this movie than in the original. Because in the original, if you remember, Lola Bunny was more considered like, ooh, she's the girl bunny. That was like her whole shtick throughout the whole entire movie. But in this one, she played kind of more like a leader role. And like I said, she had a little bit more character in this film compared to the original. So if I were to say that, if I would have to compare like what movie was better, like as far as like what they did better and what they did worse, I would say at least in this new movie, the Lola in this new movie is better than the original, to make a long story short. And also, too, one more good thing I would say, there is this scene with when they're gathering, when they're trying to, meet back up with all the other Looney Tunes characters, because all the Looney Tunes characters got dispersed from their world and they went off into other worlds, because this whole movie takes place in the serververse, which is like Warner Brothers serververse that holds all their properties. So you have like the Matrix world, you have the Game of Thrones world, you have the Harry Potter world. All the Warner Brothers property exists within the serververse, and all the Looney Tunes characters went into different worlds within the serververse. Well, there's this one scene where they had to get the granny, and she was in the Matrix world, and I felt like that scene was pretty nice. And also, too, all the other little scenes that they had while they were kind of like rescuing the other Looney Tunes from different worlds and stuff, I thought that was pretty creative, because they had one scene where they were rescuing like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, and they were in the Mad Max world. And that was just like a perfect, talk about just a perfect fit. And the way they did it, it was super short. I really wish that those scenes would have lasted a little bit longer. Like they would have stretched those scenes out a little bit longer, because they really could have made something out of those scenes. But it was just so short and chopped up. It was like you couldn't really enjoy it that much, because they was like, it was here 1 minute and then it was gone the next minute. So like I said, I did like how they did that, how they rescued each Looney Tunes character. They were all in different worlds. They had Yosemite Sam in the Casablanca world, and then they had the whole like setting like Casablanca, like LeBron was black and white, and it was done nice. That was creative. That was pretty cool. So I would say that, they did a good job with that. Other than those scenes and all the other things that I mentioned, those are about it as far as goods in the movie. The rest is freaking terrible. Like I said before, in the start of this video, the main problem with this movie is it's cringeworthy as hell. The acting is pretty terrible, mainly from LeBron James. His lines of dialogue is cringe-worthy as shit. Like, some of his lines of dialogue, the way he delivered it, it was way too overacting. It was very awkward. And every time he delivered, you're just like, oh, that was bad. That was super bad. Some of the lines of dialogue that he said was pretty good, so it was like off and on. Like, some lines of dialogue was super awkward and he was overacting. And then other lines of dialogue, it came out pretty smooth. It was like, okay, this seems natural. But like I said before, it was like almost like 50-50, maybe 75-25. The 75% of his lines were very cringy, very awkward, and then the other 25% was smooth and it was natural. So I don't know if it was the script. I don't know if it was LeBron James of himself. I don't know, man. But like, LeBron James acting in this movie was cringy at best. It was very inconsistent and, like I said, very cringy, very awkward. The villain. What villain? There's this villain in the movie called the Algae Rhythm, played by Don Cheadle. This is just Space Jam: A New Legacy guest starring Don Cheadle. This is all that is. Like, Don Cheadle as the villain, he's not really a villain at all. It's just a guest appearance by Don Cheadle, and he's just doing the best that he could with what he had to work with. Because, oh my God, like, it's, like I said, this is not a villain at all. I don't know why did they pick Don Cheadle as the villain. He's dressed up in regular clothes most of the time. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna just wear this jeans jacket and be cool and say some cool hit lines in an over-exaggerating way. And yeah, that's the villain, y'all. So, yeah, that was pretty terrible, man. Pretty terrible. His lines, I guess, were okay. But overall, his performance was laughable. Like not in a good way too. You're laughing at him, not laughing with him. I think one of the main problems with the movie too, I felt like it was a little bit too fast paced. Like, the pacing of the movie was very fast. It felt like they wanted to rush it all the way until the end to get to that final basketball game between the Goon Squad and the Toon Squad. Like, they really wanted to rush to the end to get to that final basketball game. You know what I mean? So a lot of the scenes leading up to the final game was very just short and very quick. It happened so fast. Like, you know what I mean? When LeBron entered the serververse to save his son, you know, he had to gather a team up. And, like, he meets Bugs Bunny in the Looney Tune world, and then Bugs Bunny is telling him, yeah, you know, the Looney Tunes characters all got dispersed because the algorithm came into our world and persuaded all Looney Tunes characters, you know, that there's better worlds out there. So they should, you know, go out and explore. So they all went up on a spaceship and they all dispersed into different worlds. And that's where they're living. So Bugs Bunny is the only one left in Toon World. And LeBron James and Bugs Bunny had to, you know, venture out into all the other worlds in the serververse to rescue the other Looney Tunes characters so they could play this final game. And I just felt like that whole journey was super short, because by the time he meets Bugs Bunny and by the time he gathers all of the Looney Tunes characters, it felt like that all happened within like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not kidding. Like, I guess it was the pacing that made it felt that way, but it felt like the team got assembled so damn fast. Like they didn't have enough time to build chemistry. They didn't have time to build a relationship between one another. So when you have certain serious scenes towards the end, when LeBron is giving like this heartfelt speech during halftime, I couldn't really get into it because I'm like, yo, you guys don't really have no chemistry. You guys don't really have a relationship like that, because you guys all formed within 5 minutes and you guys barely even practice between one another. They just showed one scene of them practicing in the spaceship, in Marvin the Martian spaceship, and that was about it. Like, and it was very short. So I'm like, you guys don't have a bond. You guys don't have chemistry between one another. You're trying to force this heartfelt scene like LeBron is preaching to him at halftime because they're losing the game at that point, and LeBron is trying to like give this kind of like pep talk and try to give this like rally cry, but it's like you don't really buy into it because his relationship with the Looney Tunes characters is not really there, and I didn't really buy into it at all. It's like in the original, I think they did a much better job with that. Like LeBron James' relationship with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all the other Looney Tunes characters, I think you bought it a lot more because they spent a lot more time, you know, fleshing out their relationships, fleshing out their bond, how they interact with one another. And I felt like it worked much more better in the original. In this one, they didn't really take the time to like, you know, flesh it out and, you know, build that relationship between LeBron and, you know, the other Looney Tunes characters. They could have had more scenes of them training together, talking together, you know, sharing things and sharing what Bugs is going through in Toon World and all that. But they didn't share any of that. It was just like, okay, we got to get the Looney Tunes characters and we got to rush to this final game because we got to save LeBron's son. And the main plot of the movie, speaking of which, you know, it's very simple. Like I said, you know, LeBron's son, he's like a genius when it comes to video game design. He's like a video game designer, but LeBron is like a hard ass in the movie because LeBron wants his son to be like the best basketball player. And that's not what his son wants to do. His son wants to design video games and play video games. Well, his son is like a super freaking genius. He has all this crazy technology. Like he has this thing where he has this camera on his phone and then he could scan people's bodies and make them as character models. So like when he scans the person's body through his camera, like the information goes through the camera and goes on his phone. He has like a certain app to where he can make certain video game models based on what the camera scanned on his phone. Like, I don't know where this dude got this technology from. I don't know how that shit makes sense. Now, I understand LeBron James is a rich basketball player. He has a lot of money. But the shit that the son was doing in the movie with the video game, he had his own video game and all that. I'm like, LeBron ain't that rich, you know what I mean? LeBron ain't like Bill Gates or Elon Musk. Like, the shit that the son was doing, like creating his own video game, it was very creative, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, this is the shit that makes no sense because LeBron ain't that rich, man. LeBron ain't that rich, and even if his son was into video games like that and creating video games, he wouldn't have had the technology that his son had. He wouldn't have had the technology that his son had in this movie. Like, it was... a lot of things in this movie did not make sense at all. It just felt like, you know, they just threw shit at the wall and just said, hey, we don't care. We're just going to do random shit and it is what it is. That's what this movie felt like. And it got worse to the end. This movie was cringy from start to finish, but it got worse as it got to the end. It like they just went 10 times maximum and just said, hey, we're just going to throw some shit at the wall, make some funny jokes or try to be funny and just call it a day. That's what it seemed like to me. And the whole story behind, you know, LeBron's son, you know, being, you know, captured by the algae rhythm and all that. I didn't really buy into that at all. It didn't really felt like the stakes were that high anyway, because when the son was with the algae rhythm or Don Cheadle's character, you know, it wasn't like his son was in danger. John Cheadle was treating him good. He had him up in his little room, was giving him food, and, you know, he was like, yo, man, I know your dad is a hard ass and all that. You know, he's always on you about being the best basketball player. And, like, he was giving him props. He was, you know, appreciating his work. And that's what his son wanted. Like, that's what the son wanted from LeBron. But Don Cheadle was giving, he was like, yo, man, you a great video game designer. You know, I support that, whatnot. So he was treating him good, man. Like, so the whole thing with, like, it wasn't like Don Cheadle took LeBron's son and locked him up in the cage, and then he like just stole his technology. Now, he did steal the technology in the movie, but the way he did it was kind of like sly and slick. But like I said again, man, the whole villain thing and the whole like, oh, I gotta, you know, I got to play this basketball game and win to get my son back. You didn't really feel like the stakes were that high to begin with. You didn't really feel like the son was in danger like that for LeBron to have like this urgency to save the son. Now, I understand like if somebody, you know, kidnaps his son like that, in any capacity, of course, you want to save your son, but they could have made it a little bit more high stakes. They could have made it to where like they had the son locked up and Don Cheadle's character like stole, like pretty much did a jack move and stole all his technologies. Like, yo, lock you up, treating him bad, make it at least a little bit more believable. But this one was just like, you know, Don Cheadle was treating him good, like, yeah, I'm gonna give you everything, man. Like, yo, you're gonna have your own basketball team, and the son was into it for the most part. But then he, you know, kind of like had a change of character towards the end, and he got on LeBron's team. But like I said before, the whole setup to that whole thing was, it just fell flat to me. It just fell flat, and I just didn't really feel like his son was in danger throughout the entire movie. It was just like they had to play this basketball game to rescue his son. And like I said, the stakes weren't that high. I just think that this movie, I think they could have took beats, like beats from the original. Like I said, like certain things that happened in the original, like some of the ideas that they did in the original, they could have did it in this movie too. Like I really would have much more preferred if they would have had it like in live action, like have the Goon Squad come into the real world and like interact within LeBron and the other NBA players. Because another thing that made the original Space Jam like good, I would say good as far as like entertaining and enjoyable and watchable, is it wasn't only about Michael Jordan, really. It was about the other NBA players, because remember, the Monstars, you know, they got into certain NBA superstars at that time, and they were able to like bulk up into like super monsters and super good basketball players. So you saw, you know, cameos from Charles Barkley, Luke Longley, Muggsy Bogues, you know what I mean? Larry Johnson, like all those classic NBA players, like star NBA players at that time. They kind of made the movie work too. So like I said before, all the cameos in the original made a lot more sense than in this one. This one, it was just like, okay, we're just going to dump a whole bunch of cameos and then that's it. You know what I mean? Especially towards the end, when they had the final basketball game. Like, of course, they're in the serververse. So Don Cheadle, he was like, oh, we're just going to drop every single character from every single Warner Brothers property, and they're all going to be the spectators of this final game. So you had freaking King Kong, you had Iron Giant, you had the Matrix, you had the Mask, you had all these different characters watching this game, and it just felt so cheap and lazy. Because when you see the extras that's watching this game and they're dressed up as popular characters in the Warner Brothers universe, the costumes look super cheap. Like, it looked like they got somebody from the street and they just put some cheap Pennywise outfit on them, or some cheap Mask outfit on them, or some cheap Matrix outfit on them, and say, hey, you're the Matrix guy, or you're Pennywise, or you're this, or you're that. Like, it just felt super cheap at all, because the costuming just looked super cheap. And like I said before, this movie, man, it's cringe-worthy as shit. At the end of the day, this movie is cringe-worthy as hell. It's pretty bad. They could have did a much better job, because the original wasn't even that good to begin with. So this movie should have been better than the original by default, because there's not much to like really, like, you don't really have to go out your way to make it much more better than the original. All you had to do was just do simple little things, and this movie could have worked. But instead, they made this movie for a cash grab. They made this movie for marketing and for merchandising and for products, and that's what this movie felt like. I was watching Matt Jarber's review, $3 Buck Theater. He was like, this movie felt like one big commercial. And I think that's what it is. This movie is just one big commercial. If this movie was just like a commercial series where they had like short little segments, I think it would have worked that way. Like if LeBron had a marketing campaign for his new LeBron shoes and he used certain clips from the movie in short, like I said, short little segments and had like a short commercial series with the Looney Tunes characters, I think it would have worked a lot more better. But stretching this shit out into a movie, it just didn't work, man. It just didn't work because the people behind this movie, whoever wrote the movie, whoever directed the movie, I don't think they put any effort into it at all. They just thought, hey, this is Space Jam, this is LeBron James, this is Looney Tunes. You know, it's a classic, you know, it's a cult classic film. Everybody liked the original Space Jam. So, hey, let's do it again with a new cat, with a new NBA superstar, and just put some shit together about some universe and the son being kidnapped and just throw some random jokes out there and, hey, let's just call it a day. And that's what this movie felt like, man. A lot of the jokes here did not land at all. Especially, like I said, when you get to the final game of this movie, like the final basketball game, they botched that shit because half the time, or I should say less than half the time, they're actually playing 5-on-5 basketball. And then the other 75% of the time, they're just doing some random shit that just doesn't make sense. Like, they had this one, like, they're playing the basketball game, and then they had this one segment to where Porky Pig just comes out of nowhere, starts freestyling like the Notorious B.I.G., and they call him the Notorious P.I.G. because he's a pig and all. It was just super lazily done. It just came out of nowhere. It did not fit within the basketball. They wasn't even playing basketball. Like half the time, it doesn't even seem like they were playing basketball. It was just like some style show for style points. And that's what they actually had in the movie. Because every time that they score, they have like styling points. So if you score in a stylish kind of way or a show-offy kind of way, you get extra points. So in the beginning, like the Goon Squad was killing them because they was doing some crazy shit. And like the score kept going up, going up, going up, going up. Because they was getting style points. Because the whole final game was based on the video game that the son built. So he put all of that into the game. So you had like certain power-ups. And I would say that's another good thing too with the final game at least. They had like certain power-ups. So like if LeBron wanted to jump up and go for a dunk, you had a certain like, you know, like just like video games, you step on a power-up, you're gonna, your certain stats are gonna boost. So LeBron James is going for a dunk, he steps on the power-up and he's able to jump super high and make a super dunk. You know what I mean? And they had other things like that too. And I thought that idea was cool. But then at the end, like the final dunk that LeBron did to win the game, like the power-up was on the ground and LeBron James is going up for this dunk, but he falls short. And he's about to dunk on Don Cheadle's character. And then like the son just comes out of nowhere, picks up the freaking power up from the ground and just throws it in the air, and then LeBron James lands on it and he's able to get an extra boost, and then he's able to dunk and win the game. That's like, they didn't even do that throughout the whole entire like match. Like the freaking power up was on the ground the whole time, and then at the end he just throws it up and then LeBron James just steps on it. And like, how did come they didn't do that before? Like, I didn't know that they could just pick up the freaking power up at any time and just throw it in random places and you could just jump on it and just instantly get a boost. Like I said, just so inconsistent. And then there's this one other scene where Don Cheadle gets pissed because at one point, the son, you know, he realizes, you know, I guess his mistakes or whatnot. And he joins the Toon Squad. He joins LeBron's team. And Don Cheadle gets super mad. He gets super pissed. He's like, all right, you know, I'm going to have to jump in the game. So Don Cheadle jumps in the game. And then now he's able to, like, subtract points. And then, like, in one scene where LeBron scores, Don Cheadle takes away certain points. And then, like, everybody was like, yo, how can you do that? He's like, oh, this is my game now. And I'm just like, okay, the points he took away was like 2 points. But I'm like, if you could take away points, why do you just take away their whole entire points and, like, bring them right back down to 0? You would have easily won the game. Like, you only took away, like, 2 points. Make no sense. If you could take away points from the other team, why not just take away all their points and leave them back down to 0? And you could have easily won the game. But you only took away 2, and they only had to score one basket to win the game. Man. Like I said, in short, I thought this review was going to be short, but I had a lot to say about this one, man. This film did not work. It felt rushed, like I said, while watching the movie. It just felt like they wanted to rush it to the end, to the final basketball game. And even when we got to the final basketball game, the basketball game of itself was not really that entertaining at all, because half the time they're playing actual 5-on-5 basketball. The other time they're doing like crazy random shit that just comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't make any sense at all. So, in short, man, would I recommend anybody seeing this movie? No. The only way I could recommend this is if you're super, super curious and you're like, man, I just got to check this out for myself because I was a big fan of the original, so I want to see how the new one pans out. If you're super curious like that, then go right ahead and watch it, man. But it's a waste of time. It's not good at all. It's pretty bad. Like I said, there's a few jokes here and there that does work. There's a few scenes, like I said, the best parts of the movie was when LeBron and Bugs Bunny rescues the other Looney Tunes characters. I felt like that was pretty creative and that was pretty cool how they did it. But like I said, those scenes were super short because they were super cut up, super chopped up, and you couldn't really get to enjoy it. Like when they rescued Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote in the Mad Max world, I felt like that scene could have been a lot more longer. They could have explored that world a lot more. They could have stretched that scene out and it would have been much more enjoyable. Same with the other scenes like that, but they didn't. They just quickly rushed it to the end basketball game, and then in the end it just got even more cringier, and then it just got even more stupider. So I think I'm gonna wrap my movie review up from there, man. I think I got everything off my chest. And like I said, I know this was a long one, but I had a lot to say about this one. I wouldn't recommend anybody go seeing this one, man. If you want to watch Space Jam, watch the original. Now, after watching this one, I'm kind of like intrigued to watch the original again, because this new one is just not cutting it at all. And I hope they don't make another Space Jam movie, because I'm not gonna watch it, because this shit is, man, it's not the worst movie in the world, but it's bad. It's freaking bad. So with that being said, I rambled on for long enough. So until my next one, man, you know I don't have an outro. I'm out.